Coming in number 5, we've got Sephiroth. Not all angels have 2 wings. Some just have 1, and that's enough to cause more trouble than probably anything else. The story of Sephiroth is a famous one indeed, as he has claimed a spot in the hallowed halls of video game fame. With his recent addition to Smash Bros, his legacy grows even larger, and now it's almost impossible to ignore him in conversations about famous video game villains. But how does he fit in this conversation about angels? Well, don't summon Sephiroth. Just don't do it. There are so many ways he can make your life living hell. Born to a morally depraved scientist and his helpless wife, Sephiroth was injected with cells from Genova, an extraterrestrial being of great power. With this power, he was able to develop into a super soldier of sorts, getting all sorts of tough tasks done for the Shinra company, and inspiring countless soldiers to be like him. The cell implant was only the beginning, as later in his life, Sephiroth began committing terrible atrocities in search of power and revenge. Learning of the experiments done to him and the fate that befell his mother, Sephiroth decided that it was time to annihilate some people. He leveled the Shinra headquarters, killing everyone inside, and who could forget the good old Nibelheim massacre? That famous image of the silver-haired swordsman striding through an inferno? He annihilated an entire town after learning of his origins. This destructive path eventually leads him to being flung into a pool of Mako and entering the life stream, where he learned things about the universe that nobody else could possibly know. Did this make him want to become benevolent and help those who were still shrouded in darkness? No, it made him even angrier. Returning more powerful than ever, Sephiroth attempted to blow up the entire planet by bringing a meteor down upon it. Simpler times. Eventually, he manifests as a terrible quasi-deity with 7 wings and a penchant for destruction. Even after his defeat at the hands of Cloud, he doesn't truly disappear. His legacy is continued on by Geostigma, and his presence is still felt by many. So, while not a true angel, he definitely ascended past mere humanity and became something more. And nobody should be looking to summon him anytime soon. Coming in number 4, we've got Fiore and De Blanc. Now here's an interesting duo. I'm breaking a few rules and conventions here. Firstly, because there's 2 of them, and also because these angels themselves aren't all that bad. But the thing is, if they're summoned, that means something bad has happened. And that bad thing sets a whole lot of other events in motion, eventually leading to God seemingly abdicating his throne and a man who fought during the Civil War taking over heaven. See, these are events you don't want happening, so don't summon Fiore and De Blanc, for your sake and mine. Preacher is an interesting take on religion, to say the least. We've got the Almighty disappearing from his duties, and his divine servants meant to keep the peace and enact his will are all more or less useless. So if you want something done, say the retrieval of a killer angel-demon hybrid who fuses with people and grants them great power, it's best not to leave it to them. But here we are. The inciting incident in Preacher, Jesse Custer fusing with Genesis and gaining the ability to make people do whatever he says, happens because these 2 doofuses can't do their job right. Typical angel. Is that blasphemous? Am I gonna get smited for that? I suppose all these angel videos lately have punched my ticket, might as well go with it. They kick off the series letting everyone know that God has indeed left his throne, which starts a whole array of other events. Then they can't get Genesis back to heaven, so they kinda just accept their failure. These 2 sorry bastards then spend all their time indulging in earthly pleasures and acting all around unangelic. Unbelievable, right? The worst bit is when you put 2 and 2 together, with both Preacher and proper angelic lore. What happens when angels sleep with humans? The Nephilim. That might not be canon in Preacher, but I'll make the lead for you. Here's a comprehensive guide to what happens when you summon these 2 ineffective angels. They mess up, they inadvertently cause all sorts of goofs, they decide to give it all up and indulge in hedonism, they sire enormous humanoid monsters that bring a world-ending flood. They might seem harmless, but they're gonna be way more trouble than they're worth. Coming in number 3, we've got Duma. Already we can see the negative implications in a name like Duma. You know, Duma, you get it. With all the angel talk we've been up to lately, I'm actually surprised it took me this long to properly bring up Supernatural. Crazy, I know, but here we are. Sure, Duma isn't like a mainline villain for very long, but she gets up to all sorts of wickedness in a relatively short period of time. Realizing that angels are dying out, she looks for other options to keep her kind alive. She realizes that capturing and enslaving a Nephilim could be the solution to her problems, and begins to search immediately. This brings her to Castiel, who refuses to cooperate, as the angels enslaving the Nephilim Jack could end poorly for everyone. Thus begins a long struggle between Duma and Castiel, resulting in the former taking up the throne of heaven. Her rule was one characterized by an iron fist. Usually heaven is seen as a place of peace and prosperity where everyone has their needs met and can live in paradise. Under Duma, that's not so much the case. She quickly turned it into a merciless prison where human souls were often beaten into submission. Damn. In order to keep her power, she even threatened to destroy John and Mary Winchester's shared heaven. However, that did turn out to be the wrong move, and if you know why, you know why. But yeah, unless you want to be beaten to your knees while in the paradise that is heaven, don't summon Duma. Coming in number 2, we've got Merkin, Mother of Spiders. Seems less than angelic, but she's an angel alright, or maybe a demon. Boy, you better watch out around her though. She appears as an envoy with Azazel and is just the image of hideousness. Lumpy, horrifying, and with a womb full of spiders, she's more than most would be able to handle. However, she's supposedly based on a photograph titled Amor, New Mexico, 1987, so someone's gotta love her. I just don't know if that's something anyone is interested in doing. 8-legged freaks from a fallen angel envoy doesn't sound like much fun, if you ask me. And finally, at number 1, we've got Adam and Lilith. Yeah, I'm breaking the rules with doubles again, so sue me. Here we have the 2 top dogs when it comes to angels and Evangelion. Everyone has their favorite, or least favorite, of these celestial beings threatening humanity as we know it, but there's no denying that these 2 are at the head of the hierarchy. These 2 seeds of life are responsible for all of the life forms on Earth, with Adam creating the destructive angels and Lilith creating the humans. Their power is unmatched, and their creations will never know peace, especially during the events of Evangelion, when the angels consistently attack and destroy bastions of humanity. When your last hope against an enemy of this scale is a bunch of unstable teens in mech suits, you'd best be worried. These are not kind angels, they're not even vengeful, they're destructive like nothing else, and will not stop until everything is in pieces. Damn. Coming in at number 5, we've got Azazel from Fallen. Oh boy, this guy again. I feel like we've done a freaking thesis on Azazel at this point, fallen angel extraordinaire, but I suppose he's well known for a reason, yeah? Just a classic story, the beautiful, talented, benevolent being way up above deciding to go against the powers that be and ending up a wretch. Well, he wasn't totally wretched, he ended up doing all sorts of things very well, the most important of which was corrupting humanity, and boy, he does a lot of that. In Fallen, he's got the peculiar ability to take over new hosts by touching them and uses this to great effect. After a heinous serial killer is put to death, Azazel takes to the streets, causing untold mayhem and tormenting Detective John Hobbs. This ability to hop between bodies kickstarts a game of cat and mouse as the detective attempts to track down and put an end to this horrible fallen angel. However, there's no angelic qualities left in this being, and Azazel is dead set on killing as many people as possible. Azazel commits to destroying Detective Hobbs' life, from ruining his reputation, to killing members of his family, to forcing Hobbs to take the lives of others to keep Azazel at bay. It really is quite terrifying. To make matters worse, even killing Azazel won't stop him, as if a host dies while he's in control, he can just hop to a new body as long as it can be done in the time one breath takes. Detective Hobbs' life is indeed ruin, and he does everything he can to prevent this demon from continuing on its spree. This all makes sense considering Azazel's backstory too, a fallen angel, totally physically and mentally changed from time spent down in hell, known to be a deceitful and corrupting influence on all those around him. In fact, Azazel is said to have been one of the fallen angels who taught humanity all sorts of things they probably shouldn't have known. From warfare to weapons making to the art of deception, he even went as far as teaching witchcraft. These don't necessarily happen word for word in the movie, but there's a lot of implied consequences to Azazel's knowledge. Plus, there's the whole bit where in the Book of Enoch, God ascribes literally all sin to him. That's hardcore, I'm not gonna lie. Coming in number 4, we've got Angel from Angel. Creative name, right? The thing is, this angel is less than heavenly. In fact, it's not really a biblical angel at all. I know that's sort of been the vibe for a while with these videos, but really, this angel's all in the name, more or less. It's a story of a father desperately searching for his missing daughter, who supposedly was abducted and dropped off at Raven Rock, an abandoned and dilapidated town. He hires a group of investigative journalists to head on down and see if they can find her. When they arrive, they're faced with a spooky ghost town, once a jewel of industry specializing in logging. For years, people have been mysteriously disappearing at that very same location, so the whole place was shuttered. But even after being closed down, the disappearances continued. Spooky, right? Well, there's more. One of the folks hired to look for young Ava is a woman named Maya, who apparently has connections to these disappearances. Her mother was a Raven Rock obsessive, doing her darndest to figure out the secrets this town hid. However, her mother didn't solve the puzzle and died in the process. So now Maya leads these sleuths through the town of Raven Rock, warning them of the legend known as Angel. This masked assailant seems to be involved in the disappearing people and doesn't want the team snooping around. And she'll do whatever she can to keep them out. And it gets gnarly, believe me. Add in a subplot concerning Ava's parents and their anguish following their daughter's disappearance, and you've got a wild indie horror movie. Not creme de la creme by any means, but it's a fun time overall, and Angel brings a wonderfully foreboding and dangerous presence to it. Just don't expect any white feathery wings or glorious halos and harps. It's not that kind of movie. Coming in at number 3, we've got Loki and Bartleby from Dogma. This one is questionably horror at best, but how am I going to ignore these two lunatics for 2 lists straight? Who doesn't want to see Matt Damon and Ben Affleck exploit loopholes in religious dogma in a petty attempt to get back at God? Come on. This flick gets its name from the idea of being a strict rule follower and not going back on a set of principles laid out by authority. Dogma. A pretty classic angel theme, don't you think? So when the angels break rules set out for them, bad stuff tends to happen. We see it in classic tales like the Watchers, who descended to Earth in order to indulge in human hedonism. Other fallen angels make good cases against breaking the rules as they end up in hell, either suffering eternal torment or leading hideous armies of the damned. Loki and Bartleby break the rules and get banished to Wisconsin. Tough if you're lactose intolerant, for sure. In classic slacker fashion, instead of making up for what they did or accepting their new lives and making the best of it, this dastardly duo figures out a loophole that would let them back into heaven. However, exploiting this loophole successfully would result in dogma being broken and thus God being proven wrong. This has dire consequences for everyone, as proving that God can be wrong would cause the end of the world. Good. So this is indeed scary, especially when the angels attempting to be petty and remorseless and reckless are Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Good luck convincing those two they've done anything wrong. During the flick, most of this is played for laughs, but these two end up being extremely violent, killing all sorts of folks in the human world. So while goofy and fun to watch, this is not something you'd want happening where you are. Coming in at number 2, we've got Mothman or Indrid Cold from the Mothman prophecies. Mothman's fame has risen considerably over the past decade or so as people's interest in cryptids grows online. One theory concerning Mothman is that he himself is harmless but appears as an ill omen. If you see a figure resembling a humanoid with a moth's wings, something bad is about to happen. That's exactly what goes on in the Mothman prophecies, as bereaved columnist John Klein begins to experience strange events in his life. He loses entire days and finds himself visiting strangers in the dead of night. People he's close to get calls from mysterious figures who let them know of horrible incidents about to occur, although there isn't much anyone can do about it. After getting into a car accident with his wife, John walks away uninjured. However, his wife spends some time in the hospital before succumbing to an unrelated brain tumor. Damn. He discovers all sorts of drawings of a dark angel-like figure amongst her belongings, and then starts to see stuff like that himself. Now, it's never explicitly confirmed in the movie, but some do say that Mothman is indeed an angel who does its best to warn people of impending danger. However, Mothman is not a phenomenal communicator, so instead of giving clear instructions and warnings, he kinda just shows up and speaks spookily. Vague portents of doom and gloom and misunderstood death counts make for a very creepy experience overall. So even though Mothman, or Indrid Cold, or that warning angel isn't explicitly dangerous, there's the implication of disaster that comes along with it. So watch yourself out there. And finally at number 1, we've got Gabriel from Constantine. Tilda Swinton can play any role and do it well. Just try and convince me otherwise. The cold, calculating, and terrifying Archangel Gabriel that appears in Constantine is another one of her pitch-perfect performances on a wild and out there character. After denying John Constantine's request to avoid death for a while, it's revealed that Gabriel hates humans because God shows them favoritism. Instead of just working with that and being mean to people maybe, Gabriel decides it's time to rain hellfire upon the lesser beings, or bring hell up on Earth. Oh boy. There's a lot of really cruel stuff that Gabriel does throughout the flick, and in the end it actually works against her. However, this doesn't prevent this terrifying angel from wreaking as much havoc as possible during that descent. So, y'all locked and loaded for angelic horror for a while? I know all these weren't explicitly horror, but come on. There's a little bit of spookiness in everything if you look closely enough, especially when you're dealing with the supernatural presence of God's chosen warriors. Wild, right?
Coming in at number 5, the Weeping Angel. She resides in a cemetery in Rome, starting out as a statue for his late wife by the sculptor William Westmore Story. The Weeping Angel became much more than that. Yes, she might not technically be an angel, but due to this has been the name given to her. After William died a year after creating the sculpture, it was reported that many often heard crying in the cemetery. The crying would instantly stop when you looked at the angel. She is an angel of grief, and therefore her spirit is not a peaceful one. It is said that with a single touch, a weeping angel can send a person into the past to a point before their own birth, and can then feed off the potential energy of the years which that victim would have lived in the present. If you think you have come across the weeping angel, make sure not to blink. If you look at her, she is harmless, but looking away may be deadly. Coming in at number 4, we have Lucifer. So impressed with his own beauty, intelligence, and power, Lucifer wanted to possess all the power of God. His greed led to him being banished from heaven. He became the Lord of Hell, but he did not choose to stay there. It is said that Lucifer chose to walk to earth, spreading his greed. He is said to bring out the worst in humanity and takes many forms to do this. Many people on earth worship Lucifer. It is said that if you make an offering to him that includes suffering to others, he will reward you with whatever it is you seek. We can see many examples of this in history, including the Manson family. It is said that they are attempting to perform rituals and offerings to Lucifer to do his bidding to gain more power. Around this time, many murder scenes would have satanic symbols indicating their attempts to contact or please Lucifer. Looking through history, you can see the damage he has done through others, and he will continue to have his presence here on Earth. In at number 3, we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is one of the 7 princes of hell, who have the highest authority in hell. His name translates to the Lord of Flies. Like Lucifer, he too was cast from hell. It is said that Beelzebub desires to bring on wars and cause men to begin worshipping demons. His name as Lord of Flies comes from him spreading disease. Spreading death and disease over Earth has gained him a high honor in hell, and is known as the second ranking of the many fallen angels. His spirit causes people to resort to warlike tendencies where they usually would not. Much like in the book Lord of the Flies, when his presence is around, people will begin fighting each other for land or food or really anything that they can. It is not known what brings his spirit out, but he seems to find people at their most vulnerable, in need or help, to turn against each other. Could he be responsible for all the wars in the world? We may never know. In at number 2, we have Azrael. Azrael is more commonly known as the Angel of Death. Arguably the most important of all the angels on earth, but also the most terrifying. One of 4 archangels, he is responsible for separating people's souls from their mortal form. Most people will only ever meet Azrael once in their lifetime, but others may not be so lucky. It is said that when you're next on his list, he will follow you like a shadow until your time has ended. If you somehow evade him, he will begin to hunt you down to carry out his task. There are people who believe they can communicate with and see Azrael. There are those like the late Greta Alexander who claims they were able to communicate with the Angel of Death, leading to the discovery of bodies from closed police files that otherwise would never have been found. Others turn to Ouija boards to attempt to contact the angels, something that I would not recommend, with many films showing how this can go very, very wrong. Hard facts right there. And last but definitely not least, we have Moloch. Moloch is also a fallen angel here on Earth. Any mention of Moloch is highly condemned due to its terrifying nature. From what we do know about Moloch, they are a being that demands or requires a very costly sacrifice, and that sacrifice is a person's soul. It is unclear why they demand this sacrifice, but many cults around the world believe and worship Moloch. To sacrifice a person to Moloch, you must use a flame, much like the sacrifice from Stannis in Game of Thrones. There are also horrifying mentions of eating people in some instances. To make this sacrifice, it must be your first person born. A middle person is safe. There does not seem to be much written on what Moloch grants you after this ritual, but nothing can be worth that.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Angel of Death. We'll start off with a no-brainer. If you summon the Angel of Death, you're probably gonna witness some death. Or quite possibly, participate in some death. Whether it's your death or the death of someone close to you or the death of literally everyone around you for miles, there's gonna be some death. Death, death, death. That's what happens when you summon the Angel of Death. Get used to it. By the way, does death sound weird to you now? Sounds weird to me. One particularly egregious example of this large-scale killing comes from the story of Passover. In the Hebrew Bible, there's a tale of a pharaoh who refuses to release his Israelite slaves. God brought about a bunch of plagues to convince him to finally set them free, but to no avail. So instead, the angel of death was sent to kill the firstborn sons of Egyptians across the land. If the Israelites smeared the blood of a slaughtered lamb on their front door, the angel would pass them over instead of killing one of their sons. This resulted in quite the catastrophe for the Egyptians though. And that wasn't the worst of it either. Killing all of the firstborn sons of an entire empire wasn't enough for the angel of death. No sir. Apparently, while protecting Jerusalem from an invading army, this angel wiped out over 180,000 men in one night. Like, I get it, you gotta protect what you gotta protect, but that is a lot of human death. When the casualties number in the hundreds of thousands, you might want to think twice before summoning this angel. It's like dropping a holy nuke on somebody, insane fallout and all. In actuality, folks don't really know exactly what happened when the Assyrians attempted to invade Jerusalem. By all historical metrics, this invading force should have easily taken over the city. However, there are some theories that don't involve literal divine intervention, including mice and the plague that they brought. So what's the better story though, an ill-timed mice-based epidemic or a swooping, slicing, slaughtering angel of death? Coming in number 4, we've got the Watchers. Now, I'm not so sure if the Watchers were ever summoned per se, or if they just decided to swoop down to Earth of their own volition, but either way, you don't want to encounter this group of angels, or you know what? Maybe you do. There's a few things that they got up to that folks might consider pretty cool, even if they ended up birthing a race of giant creatures that eventually drew the ire of God and got the world flooded. You win some, you lose some. So if you did decide to bring the Watchers down to Earth, you could probably learn a whole lot of cool stuff. And honestly, I've heard that certain people are really into what the Watchers bring to the table in the bedroom. Or I guess the bed in the bedroom. However, these fallen angels are not worth the trouble most of the time. They're known for luring people away from their relatives, their communities, their earthly ties, and having them commit ghastly acts. I won't detail them all because I've got to keep it PG for YouTube's sake, but I'm sure you can imagine what some supernatural beings with powers beyond our comprehension and enough desire to desert literal heaven for some good old-fashioned hedonism might get up to. Oh, I wonder if you could comment this stuff you're imagining, or would that get censored too? Maybe we'll save that for another day. So like I was saying before, the Watchers taught the humans they enchanted all sorts of forbidden knowledge. A Pandora's box moment for sure. Humans were introduced to weaponry, cosmetics, mirrors, sorcery, and more. This doesn't seem all that bad, especially because humans would have probably discovered all of it someday anyways. But humans weren't ready for all of this new mind-altering knowledge all at once. This incredible volume of previously unimaginable stuff really screwed up their brains and made them act in horrible ways. Kinda like how the internet has rotted away a lot of common sense and decency nowadays, but hey. Eventually, with the birth of gigantic monsters, the angels that didn't come to Earth to fornicate with humans decided enough was enough. It was cleansing time. The flood was called and all those who lived on Earth were washed away. Time to start again. So even if having access to Lovecraftian brain chemistry altering knowledge sounds appealing to you, if you do end up summoning a Watcher to teach it all to you, you might just end up underwater anyways. And not in a cool fun way like Atlantis or a Gungan city, I'm talking concrete shoes off the end of a pier. Coming in at number 3, we've got Abaddon. Both as a place of destruction and an angel of the abyss, Abaddon is nasty all around. Pretty much invariably, Abaddon is a dark pit of doom. It doesn't matter if you look to the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament, it's bad stuff all the way down with this angel. Like, that name literally translates to doom. Let that set the stage. If we leave Abaddon as a place where it is, we can look at some of the terrors brought about by Abaddon the Destroyer. As an angel of the abyss, Abaddon led legions of horrid locusts. These locusts weren't just regular bugs though. They had the shape of horses, the faces of crowned humans, the hair of women, lion's teeth, enormous wings, iron chest plates, and scorpion tails, stinger and all. Plus, if they sting someone with their tail, that person will suffer great torment for 5 months. That is, unless they have the seal of God on their forehead. Holy smokes. All of these details have made Abaddon a particularly popular angel to depict in horror media, from foul fiends in literature to towns of terror filled with entrances to the lake of fire to wildly powerful entities in video games. So while summoning Abaddon might earn you a solid 5 months of hell on earth, it's also kinda cool to see what happens. Weigh your options carefully. Coming in number 2, we've got Uriel. If you like your reproductive organs unsliced, you'd best avoid Uriel. See, there's an old story that makes me wonder about angelic priorities. Moses almost died because he and his wife were lax with a bit of non-essential surgery for their son. In the book of Genesis, the removal of a piece of skin at the end of a particular body part is considered mandatory. It guarantees that covenant between you and God. So when Moses and his wife Zipporah hadn't gotten around to slicing and dicing their son's parts, God sent Uriel to exact swift revenge. According to the story, he was moments away from dropping Moses on the spot, but Zipporah swept in with a particularly sharp rock and did the deed. Casting the bloody bits of their son upon Moses' feet, Uriel accepted this and refrained from ending the man's life. So if you're not careful, you could anger the Lord for something seemingly insignificant and he might send Uriel after you. And if we're being honest, that's not a way anyone wants to go. So when you sign up to be a part of something like that, maybe check the rules and regulations extra close, lest you get put in the ground for not having your tonsils removed or something. And finally at number 1, we've got Jophiel. Widely known as the Archangel of Beauty, you would think that this angel would be cool to summon. Sure, the heavenly beauty might be too much for your human mind to handle, but at least you'd go mad seeing something unspeakably radiant. Here's the thing though, Jophiel doesn't suffer any fools, and we're all fools. Hell, the first humans to ever roam the earth, Adam and Eve, found this out firsthand. After consuming the forbidden fruit and gaining its hidden knowledge, Jophiel was the one to kick them out of the Garden of Eden. Break the rules? Get booted. I don't know if that can be considered tough love, it's probably just tough. So summoning Jophiel probably means that you've recently done something that goes against God's will, and for most folks that is not something they're super enthusiastic about doing. Plus, Jophiel is said to wield an enormous flaming sword, and as bad as that is, you probably don't ever want to be on the receiving end of it. Even though folks love angelic imagery and often take great comfort in the knowledge that heavenly bodies are watching over them, there's a lot to be feared too. When it comes to higher powers, you probably want to avoid summoning stuff unless it's an absolute emergency, you know? Coming in number 5, we've got Puriel. Not to be confused with the top tier hand sanitizer, although I wouldn't be too mad if you made that mistake. This angel does a similar job to the alcohol-based cleaning solution. He purifies and eliminates all sorts of unsavory things. Whether or not that's 99%, I can't be sure, but here we are anyway. His job is one that not many would really want to do. Puriel is the angel of punishment. One would think that once you made it to heaven, there wouldn't really be a need for that kind of thing, but apparently we're wrong. He watches over the prison in heaven, acting as the warden. Who knew? He's also responsible for examining each and every soul that makes it up to heaven after dying. During this spot check, he makes sure that the soul is pure enough to be allowed to pass through. Kinda like a TSA check at the airport, but somehow more invasive. Instead of checking your passport and your luggage and making assumptions based on your appearance and background, they're instead reaching into the depths of your soul. Talk about a cavity search, am I right? If you are fit to enter heaven, he will let you pass, although I'm not so sure you'll be the same person after an experience like that. Fail the test, and out you go. Down to hell or possibly purgatory to cavort with all sorts of other unworthy individuals. Damn, so close too. Puriel is known for being fiery and pitiless too, so don't count on just barely squeezing by. If he doesn't like what he sees, he's gonna drop you from the clouds faster than you can say bless you. Dang. Maybe he does have a lot in common with Puriel. I'm sure he eliminates 99% of potential heavenly residents. I wonder if that could have any long-term implications like hand sanitizer and antibiotics do, you know, by leaving some of the stronger unsavory bits untouched so that they get stronger and no longer be purified by that regular dose. Super bacteria, here we come. Oh man, did I just compare me and the others unworthy of heaven to bacteria? Gotta work on that self-esteem. Coming in number 4, we've got Simkiel. Dangerously close to Sin Kiel, this is another remorseless, unrepentant angel. Do not put yourself in her sights lest you be utterly annihilated in seconds flat. One has to wonder how an angel becomes the chief of destruction, although I wouldn't recommend asking Simkiel anything about it. She's likely to just cash in on that title in the wildest way possible. Destruction. In addition to her first title, she also is known as the Angel of Vengeance, which works well with those predetermined traits. Destructive and vengeful seem to go hand in hand quite well. Claim revenge through destruction, destroy upon the path of vengeance. What an angel. Simkiel does spend a good amount of time in heaven, commanding other angels, but will often be called down to earth to chastise and purify sinners. Most folks have a hard enough time being chastised by their teachers and employers. Imagine a literal angel from heaven dropping in to give you an earful. My word. Plus, the way most angels purify sinners isn't pleasant. It's not just radiant light zapping you to righteousness in the same way a UV light might disinfect buffet food. You're probably getting smoten. Straight the hell with your sinful ass. She doesn't always work alone either. Many lesser angels receive Simkiel's orders and follow them with fervor. A whole platoon of vengeful, destructive angels on the lookout for sinners and sinner adjacents. I don't know about you folks watching at home, but I don't think too many righteous and pious people are watching top 5 scary videos. So Simkiel should be on our list of folks to avoid at all costs, as if we could even avoid her in the first place. Oh well, I guess there's only so much you can control in life. Might as well get cleansed by the good guys in the end, right? Coming in number 3, we've got Ansiel. Working closely with Simkiel, Ansiel is another tough cookie straight out of the clouds. With a name meaning the constrainer, one can assume that nothing good comes from being constrained. Images of prison, the inability to move, and possibly even Stockholm Syndrome are evoked, are they not? All that being said, it's tough to think that an angel who makes regular use of constraints is anyone's safe haven, unless you're a regular on a smutty roleplay blog, and in that case, you do you. Ansiel isn't all that bad though. He's often invoked to prevent forgetfulness and stupidity, which, to be honest, we could all use a hand with from time to time. However, if someone were to rely on angelic intervention regularly to keep them in line, well, what hope did they even have in the first place? Apparently Ansiel is known for having a very short temper when it comes to these two traits, however, so those who need his help the most are likely to be held in contempt by him. Maybe find a new job, right? Humorless and hard to get along with, Ansiel is an excellent soldier. In fact, he's one of Michael's greatest warriors, which means if anyone is ever to step to him, things will end very badly for them. Watch out and try to keep tabs on stuff you're supposed to remember. If you fail at this, you could find yourself restrained, constrained, and in Ansiel's bad books. Coming at number 2, we've got Gabriel. Now we're talking about the big ones, the archangels. Gabriel in particular can be a real pain to deal with. The youngest of the archangels, he is known as the messenger of God. He heralds major changes and brings news from the heavens. So if you run into Gabriel, you can be assured that something monumental is about to happen. You'd better listen closely though, because he doesn't suffer fools. In fact, if he senses that you're not paying close enough attention, he might just silence you forever. That's almost what happened to Zechariah. When Gabriel descended to announce the birth of John the Baptist, Zechariah initially reacted poorly. Seeing this, Gabriel got angry. So angry that he threatened to take away Zechariah's voice. He said, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and bring this good news. But now, because you did not believe my words, you will become mute, unable to speak until the day these things occur." Man, I can only imagine what happens when he gets into an actual argument with someone. For a being with divine powers, he sure has a short temper. Plus, as God's messenger, Gabriel is going to be the first to show up if God ever decides to call this all quits. It's more likely than you think, too. Humans are sinful and often turn to other forces these days, and in so many movies, Gabriel is the big bad guy who causes all sorts of problems for humanity. When you're the first angel to show up, you'd better believe you're going to catch a lot of folks off guard. And finally, at number 1, we've got Michael. To cap off our list, the head archangel himself. He's the one powerful enough to push Lucifer out of heaven. He's the one strong enough to end the angelic war. He's the one righteous enough to prevent Samael from tearing a baby from its mother's womb. Nothing can stop Michael save for God himself, so why would he be on this list? Well, that kind of unchecked power can never be good, now can it? As the most powerful angel in creation, he has control over all of the other angels. God leaves him in his stead to rule over the kingdom of heaven, and if Michael were to ever change things up, it's unlikely that anyone would be able to do anything about it. If Michael looks down and deems our world unworthy, we're done for. Game over. The book of Revelation will come to fruition and all mortals will suffer before being cleansed from the earth. It's good to know, right?